guys gotta start street passing on me if you don't have it up here. Yeah, everyone's like, oh. Because the doctor's in the house. Huh? The doctor has played Pokemon, but I'm like 3 games back apparently. I'm a Pokemon Black.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm with you.
See, the thing is, I really like, what's his name, N? N? I am N. When you think about it, I always thought Pokemon fighting was cruel. It so is. What I always objected to was the fact that you just abandoned Pokemon. Like, you've got your Rattata or whatever like that, and when you find something better, he's gone.
It should last that long.
Back in the queue.
Yeah, he goes into his PC. Like, you plug him in, he's in this digital netherworld. Forever.
But like all the boxes are like different things, so what if they're like in a dream state? Like,
Well, whatever, he's there forever. You're never gonna pull his fuzzy ass out of there. So you've condemned these poor rats to this digital purgatory for all eternity. You sick bastard. And you know, Ash Ketchum is like, these are my friends. Pikachu is my one and only friend. And meanwhile, like, you know, the Caterpie is like, I'm back in my PC with you. You can release them, but if you're gonna have them all, you've got one of every goddamn Pokemon in your PC just so you can have one. Is that not it's like, I can't even say it's materialistic. What do you do when you collect souls? You're Satan, essentially. If you're a Pokemon trainer, you are the devil.
It's true.
Best case scenario, you're Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, and every time I bring this up, they're like, "Wow, Spoonie." They're willingly joining you, and like they're willingly signing themselves over to eternal torment inside your crappy computer. What if the power fails and the hard drive spins down, and you're like, "Oh no!"
Not cloud, because you can access it from
cloud computing. Well, that's in the newer versions. You get cloud computing.
No, because it's in the old version too. You can access that from any PC.
Oh. That makes it better. Is there like an Instagram for Pokemon? I want my Pikachu blue. There we go. It's a lot better. Anyway, Counter Monkey. I was going to talk about some of that. I'm not going to do the Bible thing again. As for Counter Monkey, I did have some news stories, and I was just thinking about another way that one of my more longer-term characters died in an embarrassing fashion. And his name, and also continuing the streak of my unfortunately named characters like Lance Stormshield, this one was named Sorbo. This was before we knew Kevin Sorbo had lost his goddamn mind.
At least it's not Cypher Rage.
Cypher Rage? No, that's too specific, but he was called Sorbo the Dangerous. He was what was called a wild mage. Wild mage is kind of one of those, it's in the expansion books type of wizards who use what's called wild magic, which is essentially like chaos. So it's magic, but way less reliable. Why would you ever do something like that? That's basically why.
Is that like more powerful or anything?
It can be, sometimes. Well, yeah. Anything that's just funny.
If you're extremely lucky.
Basically what you would do is whenever you cast a spell, you roll the d20, and you know, if it was high, something generally good happened, like it might have been enhanced a level in power. So like if you threw a fireball, if you threw a chaos fireball, you'd roll a d20, and if it was high, it would be like 2 levels higher. So it was way more powerful. But if you rolled low, it would be a really feeble fireball. But if you roll a 1, something bad would happen. Or something would happen. It wouldn't always be bad. But there would be this table called, you know, wild magic, what do they call it? Like flare-ups table or something like that? Mishap. So there'd be a table with like, it was either 1 to 20 originally or like 1 to 100, where weird effects would happen. So, for instance, one would be like your hand, erupting forth from your hands would be this gigantic spray of daffodils. Or a literal rain of frogs, 20 feet in radius appears wherever you had initially targeted your spell and stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
That's a great way to surprise your opponent, though.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a confusion, or like the worst ones would be like you teleport 10 miles in, a random direction determined by a D8 roll. So all of a sudden Sorbo just, and he like there's the ocean. He's like
I mean that's Ultimate 8.
What? Oh yeah, totally. Like, But yes, so my guy was a wild mage, and so we were also playing the version where we have these other expansion books where we would get, you would roll for your family as well, like what your family did and what, the stuff you might have inherited from your folks. So sometimes you might get an ancestral blade, something really cool. Sometimes you might get a mount, like a horse or something from your family. Well, I got an ancestral mount. That sounds so dirty, but no, I did. But I rolled the weird result. And I go, okay, so there's a weird result on the ancestral mount table. So sometimes you'll get something stupid like a goat, or something like that. I got elephant. A war elephant. A war elephant, but if you've seen The Simpsons, you know that feeding an elephant is a bitch. But I got an elephant. So Sorbo the Dangerous, was not so dangerous so much as he had an elephant, though. So I'd ride up to a tavern, toss the reins over to the stable boy, like, I expect a good brushing. Be good now.
What did you name it?
Daisy. Treat him nice, Daisy. That's my elephant. So there's one of my favorite settings that the DM was running us through is called Keep on the Borderlands, which is not so much an adventure, but it's like this. It's just a description of like this 30 square mile area in the world about this castle that overlooks, this valley. It's very cool. So of course, our party eventually attacked it, which would have been a lot more difficult had we not had a war elephant or a Holocaust cloak. So, yeah, with a war elephant, we managed to deliver all sorts of pain to this keep, and eventually, yeah, we conquered it because our characters had reached name level. Name level is like 9th level, typically. Because back then, if you were a fighter or a rogue or something like that, you weren't called that. Every level had a name to it. So, like, you were footpad, cutpurse, highwayman, bandit, and at 9th level, you were a thief. So it wasn't until 9th level as a fighter that you were a fighter. You were like brute, grunt, dork, just head basher, like knee breaker, arm breaker, stuff like that. And then 9th level, you were a man or woman. Yeah. So I think it was actually technically at 9th level you were a lord. So when you were a lord, you had to establish a keep. So they kind of took that away from now. They took it out in later editions, and they put it back in, they took it out. So you had to establish a stronghold at 9th level, or you could, I guess, but of course you did, you wanted to. But now how to afford it? Let's beat somebody up and take theirs.
Why not?
And of course it did help this guy was a dick. The guy who ran the keep was a real bastard to us. So eventually, yeah, we had a war elephant, or I did, and they paid me very well for its services. So we armored it up, yes. You can get tack and harness and armor for your war elephant. Our fighter took blacksmithing and took another proficiency in blacksmithing specifically so he could forge war elephant armor. The Daisy was our favorite. And then I died. But here's why. We took it over. I was throwing just weird chaos spells from the top of my war elephant like a boss. I was just like, candy! Somebody takes a candy cane through the eye. Sorbo teleports like 30 feet in the air. I'm good. I took more damage from myself than I did from any arrows or anything like that. So eventually we take it over, pretty much through brute force. We just walk up to the gate and I kick it down. Because you got an elephant, right? So then we decide to explore the valley, which is strangely not the first thing we did. No, we were just like, look, castle, let's get them. So yeah, we go into this dungeon and we had what's called a berserker. It's kind of a subclass of barbarians, and barbarians do a thing called barbarian rage, where they basically punch themselves in the head a lot and go psychotic, and it gets them hulked up, and they go, and they go kill stuff, and they get temporary hit points, and they get an enhancement in strength, and it is even to the point where if they get knocked below their normal hit points, they have berserker rage so they have more than normal. But then when their rage wears off, they lose all those temporary hit points, and then they just drop dead. Which is not what happened to me. In a berserker rage, the berserker will attack all his enemies first, that he knows to be enemies, and then not be able to distinguish his friends from an enemy, and then go on to attack his friends. So I had dealt with this before, because I had the sleep spell, and I always kept it around just in case this guy was like, he went Hulk on me. And I had done it like 3 times, because this guy's will save sucked. He's a berserker. He's, by his nature, he had an intelligence and wisdom of like 5. You could talk him into anything. And like, hey man, I need some money for my stabling of the elephant. How much? Like 60? Okay. Yeah, oh yeah. Which actually isn't far off. You need a lot of grain to do this, you know. So eventually, we're going in there and we're fighting all these ghasts and ghouls, and he's immune to paralyzation at this point, so the ghasts were nothing. And then he turns on me. Uh-oh. So I go, sleep! And the one time in his friggin' life that he rolls a natural 20. It's always how it goes, isn't it? It's either a botch or a critical success. He's all, Hassan, chop! He chopped, all right. Because at 9th level, he has like 168 hit points, and I have, what's 9 times D4? 36.
70.
Oh no, like 40. Tops. Well, it's, a wizard at that day had a D4 in hit points. Plus Constitution, which, man, no.
So this was the leaping wizard scenario backwards.
Yeah, kind of. So yeah, this is like, mages were always squishy. Always squishy, especially considering a fighter, like a berserker, had a D12.
Barbarian.
So 9 times, let's say he maxed out on 12, I don't know, 120 minus 12, 108? 110?
108.
108, yeah, I can do math, I went to college. I haven't had to do math in decades. You don't even know how old I am, babe.
I'm pretty sure.
I remember laser discs. That's what I thought. So yeah, he went down hard. Oh dear. I don't remember if it was a crit. I don't think so, but it was. I was like, sleep. He goes 20. I spent the rest of the night pretty much like that. Going, Sorbo, and they all immediately started dicing off to see who got the elephant.
Priority.
Right in front of me. That is the worst, when you die in a game and they all start splitting up your stuff. Because he'd want us to have it. It's magic stuff. You know, it's like the wand of magic missiles. Oh shit, we can use that. Do you know the password? No, we'll figure it out though. You know, if the fighter goes down with a +3 longsword, okay, somebody's gonna get that. We're not burying him with that. He would want us to avenge his death with it. And by the time they'd done that, well, we'd forgotten. You know, yeah, whatever. Of course, they leave me. They just leave me in the dungeon. Should we bury Sorbo? Better not. We better not traumatize Clogdor, the uncleanable, with the tragedy of what he's done. And of course, he's actually being in really well in character, where he's like, "You shouldn't have gotten in my way." And I'm like, fair enough. And it was fair enough. I knew what I signed on for, but sometimes players insist on like picking the most insane, party-threatening character no matter what, just to see what happens. But wild magic was always really fun, because now in my current group, I've given them a Rod of Wonder, or a Wand of Wonder.
The Rod of Wonder, yes.
And I've made this Wand of Wonder intelligent. His name is Willie. He was an insane mage who crafted the Wand of Wonder, and then to be immortal, he transferred his consciousness into the Wand of Wonder. His name was William, but as of course he's insane, he called himself Willie. So imagine Beetlejuice inside a wand, and he made the password Jabberwock. So they find him, and I immediately go, oh, well, you look inside the bag, and you see an enormous Wiener Schnitzel. And then the other person is like, no, that's not what I see. I see a giant badger that is like a badger statue. So they all see something different because it's a Wand of Wonder. It's crazy. You know, it's wild magic. And sure enough, it has the word, like they all have the word Jabberwock on the side, and so they go, what does Jabberwock mean? Like rainbows shoot out of everyone's eyeballs. And everyone who gets touched by one of the rainbows is affected as if they were, the friendship spell or, alter emotion. So, they get friendship as magic vision for like 6 hours. For like 6 hours. And of course, since they were all looking at each other, they're immediately all each other's best friend, and so they're frolicking down the dungeon. La 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 la. Doing their Care Bear stare. Yeah, and so the one limiting factor of the Wand of Wonder is the fact that eventually you start running through all the results on the table, which is why I have secondary books. And one of my favorite books currently that I'm using with Pathfinder, it's not a Pathfinder book, but it's called, write this down, GM Gems, which is a bunch of little variant tables of things like, well, if you want kind of weird things to find in enemies' pockets, but you don't want them to be magical and not just like, your typical coins, weapons, bullets, and things like that. It just has a 100 entry table of just funky things you can find in their pants. Like a pair of dice, or a collection of really finely made cigars. Stuff like that that's really interesting, and you can fool your players into thinking they're magic and wasting an absurd number of resources trying to identify them. You find an exquisite chess piece of a knight that's made of ivory, and of course you think it's magic. It's not. Still really interesting things. One of them is an alternate table for a Wand of Wonder. So this, of course, has the most awesome stuff, in which eventually it had kind of bonded with April's character, because she was the one who picked it up. So they were best friends. So she kept using it, and so they got into a bar fight at one point, and she brandished the Wand of Wonder. Actually, it had ego dominated her. Have you ever heard of that? Intelligent weapons can eventually dominate the egos of whoever bears it, almost like the One Ring, but usually not nearly as nefarious. Usually. So she's holding on to this thing, and it keeps talking to her from her backpack. Like, hey, come on! Let me out! Come on! I never get to see anything. I've been stuck in this box for like 200 years. Come on! Hey! So she takes it out to tell it to shut up. And she's like, fooled you! Ego dominates her because she rolled for crap. It was only temporary, I think. So she brandishes it and says the magic word, and I roll, and it goes, fill the room that the player is currently occupying with marshmallow. That was awesome. So they're filling it was embarrassing at first. None of them knew what the hell happened, and they're like, it was like in Akira. Kyrie, help me!
The classic anime moment.
Oh, yeah.
Real suggestive.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I can't stop! I didn't think of that. That would have been great. See, you think along my lines, sir. But now they're like, how long do marshmallows last? Let's fill our packs. So now their rations consisted of like a week of just solidified sugar. This can't end poorly. And then the city guard shows up. Get out. But the peasants are happy. It's a miracle. This white manna from the heavens did erupt. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. So they go to this town. It's a little like this really classic adventure called Trouble in Hamlet or something like that, where it all turns out to be basically like this Cthulhuoid, like they're all secretly, they're attacked by legend. This one was like the entire town is basically like Innsmouth, where they're all part of a cult, founded by a Naga, a spirit Naga. So they're all basically trying to transform themselves also into snake people. So little do they know when they come here that everything around here is, you're not from around here. Where they're going to try to sacrifice them to the spirit Naga. So eventually, the tavern keepers, one of them tries to poison them, and some of them get knocked out from the poison. That's when the other cult members try to abduct them, and then the fight is on. Unfortunately, they were supposed to finish the fight very quickly, and one of them gets away and raises the alarm. Now the entire town wants to kill them. So now they are literally avoiding a mob with torches and pitchforks trying to stab them many times until they stop moving. So they start to flee the town because this is getting nuts. And again, unfortunately, the pursuing mob members are stunningly accurate with their thrown bottles and spears and makeshift clubs. And so in desperation, Willie is like, oh, come on, let me out of here. I can help you, I think, maybe. You got nothing to lose, babe. So April takes it, okay, fine. Shoots it out, and I roll. And most of the results are no good. And this one was, a rhinoceros appears. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, it says, an angry rhinoceros appears.
The question is who was the time?
Exactly. So now I'm thinking, okay, a rhinoceros appears and it's pissed off. Well, I would think it would be after the large mob of people with fire. Swear to God, I did not fudge this result. So I'm like, I go, okay, well, a rhinoceros appears in front of you. It goes, "Mrrr." That's my rhinoceros. And it charges the mob of pitchfork-wielding people who are immediately trampled and crushed and destroyed in record time. And then it proceeds to smash the entire village. Just, "Ah!" So they single-handedly crushed the entire adventure by summoning a rhinoceros by accident. And I'm like, this is the best invention ever. It's like a deck of many things, but like it doesn't destroy them necessarily, usually. And sometimes they're actually very wise in never taking Willie out. They never take Willie out unless they have to.
There's no way you're gonna.
Willie remains in her pants. They never play with Willie unless. They never use the wand unless they have to, which is seriously, he's like the nuclear option because they've seen what he can do. And honestly, most of the options are not that bad, but yeah, the rabid rampaging rhinoceros that crushed an entire village and essentially ruined my game. But such things happen. So yeah, that was that, and that's how Sorbo died. Poor Sorbo. And that's how they crushed the entire village and crushed the entire cult of the Spirit Naga with a rhino.
That would have made Dark Waters of the Earth a much shorter game.
Oh yeah, yeah. It makes most games shorter when you drop a rhino on it.